Comedy's tough, not everybody has comedy. Not everybody has the timing or the wit to be a comedy character. You have to find something that the people relate to and the people connect to. Even like Boris, I mean, everybody knows somebody that's a nerd.
At first I was like, I don't want to be a nerd. I was like, fine, let me test out the nerd. And actually got a good pop. It worked so well.
I wanted to be a sympathetic underdog comedy babyface because they didn't have one. William Regal and Eugene, his character was becoming something new because they'd never seen Regal care for somebody else. And said, Kurt, who do you want to wrestle? And Kurt thought, well, you get the most sympathy on Eugene. All the evolution speed in Eugene, bang, 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 Flair's down, Batista's down.
Every time I step in the ring, I always want to be 100 times better than I was before.
My goal is to come to Barrie and wrestle Boris in a tuxedo match.
I'm so down.
Rewind, recap, relive. For over 50 episodes, the revolutionary force in wrestling interview.
Our first guest has about 2 years experience in wrestling. He's been making his name known in Canada recently, in Barrie Wrestling, Destiny Wrestling, just to name a few. He's not just a nerd, but a calculated nerd at that. Please welcome Boris Crobos.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
It's nice to have you here. It's nice to meet you, too.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. No, we're going to have a good time. Our next guest is returning to the show, a vet, close to 30 years experience in the wrestling world, mainly with WWE, which I can't wait to get into. He's been in there with so many legends, and he's recently started his own YouTube channel, Eugene, behind the scenes. Please welcome Nick Dinsmore.
Hey, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I'm so happy to have you back. And yeah, welcome back. Our first interview was about 3 years ago. And since then, like I mentioned, you started your own YouTube channel, Eugene, behind the scenes, that everyone should go check out. What was the inspiration to really start it up?
I've got a lot of pictures from my time in WWE, my time wrestling in the independents, and I just want to be able to tell that story. I'm in the process of a long process of trying to write a book, but I'm trying to also put it out on a YouTube format so people can enjoy and I can tell my stories.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job too. We were mentioning off air the controversial character video is doing fantastic. How is it adapting to like the YouTube form of telling stories?
I did a little bit of it before. I've got another YouTube channel called the Nick Dinsmore YouTube channel. It's a little bit older, but I tried to get a little bit more in the weeds and specifically on the stories. My other channel has matches and some other things, but this one is primarily going to focus on, my time traveling, wrestling everywhere and telling all the wild and crazy antics and things I saw.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas in the pipeline that we can look forward to?
Yeah, we're working on a video right now. The first time Eugene wrestled overseas, he wrestled in Montreal, the big Montreal Monday Night Raw, where he wrestled Kane. And the live events on that weekend, it's a pretty good story. So we're working on that one. That should be out in the next 2 weeks or so.
Oh, cool. No, that's awesome. And it's such a thriving, like the wrestling YouTube scene right now. It's really cool. There's so many, like yourself, Maeve, and we were saying Cafe de Rene is out there. Boris, have you gotten a chance to see any of these channels or Eugene?
No, I haven't, but I would definitely check it out. They look pretty interesting.
Yeah. No, it's a really cool way to see some of those stories. And I know a lot of the videos give like great advice too that you wouldn't, that's hard to come by. But Boris, it's really cool to have you here. I'd love to start beginning for you and hear how you got into the wrestling world.
So I guess how I got in the wrestling, I always watched wrestling when I was a fan. I think my brother got me to watching wrestling since I was like 5 years old. And my first match ever watching it was John Cena versus Davari in a blindfold match. I was like I was like, what is this? This is so cool. And then I just kept watching Monday Night Raw every week, like sneaking up past my bedtime and stuff, just like see how cool it is. I was like, John Cena is really cool wrestler. So every time I would say for me, John Cena is the reason why I wrestle, because like I just want to be like him, inspire little kids and just be like a real life superhero and stuff. So he inspired me to be a wrestler. And then I think like I say when I started wrestling, because my dad wanted me to finish school and stuff before wrestle, I was like, all right, sounds good. And so basically now I went to Bowers Academy in Mississauga, Ontario, August 2021 late to like early September. And the coaches were there before, what they coached me was Nick Andrews, known as Asylum, and Rob Simpson, known as Silk. They trained me. I'm very grateful for them for my career and stuff. And actually, the reason why I'm a nerd right now is actually because of my coaches. Because we were doing like I really didn't really have a character, but I had like my first match ever. It was kind of it was wild to me having a match only 3 months training and stuff as my student stone. So I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, he asked me, you should be a nerd. You look like you should be like you look like a nerd, no disrespect, anything. I was like,
Right.
no intended. I was like, at first I was like, no, I'm like, I don't want to be a nerd and stuff. But like, I'm glad he pushed it because I don't know where I'd be in the wrestling business if he wasn't for that he didn't push me. So
Yeah.
eventually I did. We did had this little mock show. I was like, fine, let me test out the nerd, and actually got a good pop. And I was like, it worked so well. And after ideas just clicked for like new ideas for the nerds. I was like, and
Yeah.
since then I've just been actually loving this character and stuff. So I shout out to my coach Rob Simpson.
That's awesome. I mean, it's a really cool story, and yeah, I agree. It helps you stand out. I feel it's a great character, and you put
Yeah.
a lot of work into it. I want to get into it more in a bit. Nick, for you, do you remember where you were, maybe literally or mentally, around 2 years into your journey into the wrestling world?
2 years into business, I was wrestling for the Memphis-based promotion in USWA. I started wrestling in '96. By '98, I wrestled for USWA. I wrestled for Music City Wrestling, and then I started wrestling, doing some shots for WCW. So by the time I was 2 years in, I was on Monday Night Nitro when they were still on top in the Monday Night War.
Was there a lot of pressure back then for you, Nick, getting in so early to something so big like the Monday Night Wars?
Um, I mean, I not that I recall. I'm sure I was nervous. I had to have been,
Yeah.
but I was, I was the newest guy there. I was happy to be there. I was, my mouth was shut, my ears was open. I was introducing myself to everybody, and I was just there to give the best impression that I could.
Yeah, absolutely. Like being a sponge, right?
Hmm.
Absolutely. Uh,
Absolutely, yeah.
Boris, when you walked in, were you all ears open too? Do you remember any advice you got early on that helped?
I did. I walked in. I looked. The academy was like really cool. I was like, damn, he had like Santino schools. Like he had all his photos, all his old belts and stuff. It was like really cool and stuff. I'm like, damn, this is the cool place. And then I saw like early on, I would say one of my coaches, I would say like he's coaching now, Gabriel Fraser. Probably one of the best wrestlers in Canada today, and he should be signed by now. But he's literally really good wrestler. He told me like, because I was going like too fast in the ring. He's telling me if you think you're going slow, go even slower, because it's like it gets you in your head. And like, oh, that makes sense. Because if you go slow, go even slower, so it doesn't feel like it's choreographed and stuff.
Nick, do you have thoughts on that advice? Going slower?
Well, he's right. The fact of the matter is, people can only understand and perceive what we do so quickly. If you remember when we're kids, the videos with the music and the ball bouncing on the words, the ball can only bounce so fast. We can only perceive stuff so quickly. So we have to do it slow enough so that everybody understands it. If you go too fast, if there's a stand-up comedian that tells his jokes too fast, sometimes people will miss it. So we have to do it slow so everybody can fully absorb what we're doing out there.
That's a great way to put it. Never thought of that bouncing ball. Yeah, you're right. Just slow down. I feel like, yeah, it probably goes to a lot of stuff, but no, very good advice. Nick, we didn't speak much last time about your time in OVW. We spoke more about your time when you hit the main roster. So I'm curious because you had a great career there, won the heavyweight championship, I think a record 10 times. When did you first arrive in OVW in your career?
So that's where I started wrestling. I started wrestling in '96. I was trained by Nightmare Danny Davis. At the time, it was called the Nightmare Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling. And then I believe 1998 is when the business turned into Ohio Valley Wrestling. It might have been earlier than that. I don't remember. But that's where I started. And then the WWE developmental partnership came in I think, late '98, maybe 1999. And then I was signed in 1999. I wrestled from '96 to 2004, solely at OVW until I got called up to Monday Night Raw.
Okay. And when you walked into OVW, was Jim Cornette there immediately when you were there?
No, no, I started in '96. Jimmy came, I think, in '99. I think in like the summer of '99, I believe,
Okay.
spring or summer.
I'm curious what your first impressions of him were, because clearly a brilliant mind for the business, and he could be a bit passionate, we could say, more than others. But what were your first impressions of him?
Well, one of the trainers there, the hustler Rip Rogers, kind of wound us all up, telling us that Jimmy was going to be angry and like this guy that we're going to have to impress. And actually, Jimmy's one of the nicest, coolest guys, and he was there to make everybody better. So he was there to help the product. So it was an easy transition for somebody to come in that wants to everybody to do well and comes in with ideas for everybody to do well.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember any moments you really saw like the brilliance on display?
I mean, it was just a slow progression of where I would have a match and he would come back and say, okay, that was good, but if you would have done this, you could have made it mean more. Okay. And he's the one who taught me how to be like a top guy, main event guy, and built all the angles around Nick Dinsmore being one of
Oh,
the
wow.
top guys in OVW. So, I mean, I was always figured in, whether it's a tag match, whether it was a babyface or a heel, whether it was a title match or not. I was always in the mix, and it was myself, Rob Conway, Doug Basham, Danny Basham, Flash Flanagan. We were the more experienced guys,
Yeah.
having 3, 4, 5 years experience, wrestling with the developmental guys that were sent there, like Cena, Batista, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Victoria, Shelton Benjamin. All those guys were the ones that were sent up that wrestled us and then went on to the main roster.
Yeah. Wow, I mean, that must have been crazy. It's such a cool talent pool to see that all of you were there early on. Was there anything that Cornette came up with back then that maybe we didn't see make TV, whether with your character or with anybody else down there?
Well, a lot of it nobody's seen because WWE owns all that footage. I don't know if Peacock has it now or if, if Netflix is going to get all that footage now, but they really haven't released a lot of the OVW footage. They've held it under wraps. So, other than the people that saw it, live when it aired, or the some of the TVs that have gotten onto YouTube, some people have seen it. But there's all kinds of great stuff that Cornette came up with. I mean, it was a good couple years TV that was really really good and successful.
Wow. I hope they do release it one day. I forget if they actually did some OVW piece at one point. They might have done like an episode or something, but there's never been like a full like docuseries like they've been doing. It would be really cool to see a lot of that.
Even if
Uh,
they just, just put the actual episodes up online somewhere.
yeah, exactly, or that. So Boris, I mentioned so you've been making your name known in Barrie Wrestling,
Yeah.
Destiny Wrestling. Can you take us through your first day at walking into Barrie Wrestling, let's say, because I know it's a great promotion out there.
Oh, it's a grateful. I am so grateful for being on that show. So I've been helping out Barry Wrestling for a while now. I'd say like when I first started wrestling, I went with some couple of guys, Bowers. I appreciate them. Like they're like homies to me and stuff.
Mhm.
So you took a car ride to Barry. We um we met the promoter for the first time. He's honestly probably the nicest promoter I've ever met in my whole life, Sean Gibson. So shout out to Sean Gibson for being so nice and like warm and just like being there for me. Yeah, so we helped out like at least 7 times on shows, and then I think last year Canada Day weekend I was just gonna do rig crew for them, and then I don't know if then after that the promoter actually asked me do you bring your gear to wrestle one of the guys at Barry Wrestling to see what you got? And I was like, damn, okay. So I wrestled for the Canada Day weekend at like a festival downtown Barry. It was a decent match. I liked it. The other guy I know really well, Clay Wilson, such a good wrestler, and he's a great guy in general. Love that man. And yeah, he kept putting me on the next day, and then the next day after that, I was like I wrestled all 3 days. I was like, damn, I'm very grateful. Then he pulled me aside after we're like tearing down the ring, when we put it back in the church. He's like he wanted to play. He loves my character, and he wants me to put on like those shows, his real shows on like at the venue. And I was like really grateful. And I had my debut match, which I actually won, which was really shocked me because I didn't expect anything like that. And I'm just very grateful just to be a part of Barry Wrestling family. It's
Yeah.
just I'm
No,
just very
absolutely. No, it's very valuable, and there's a ton of great talent in there, like the ones you were mentioning. I've had some other people on the show from Barrie. I really like their promotion. I want to get into some character development now, because so you said you continuously build upon your
yeah.
nerd persona that you're doing. Can you talk about some of the things that you do to build upon it?
So basically I'm trying to like I'm always trying like evolve in like I'm still trying to evolve new ideas where I'm gonna basically I have this persona there. I'm gonna have like new gear where I usually have my because I'm Croatian Bosnian and like I want to like rep the flag and stuff. So I have my own custom gear and I have suspenders. So like it's but most of the time it breaks off. So I'm gonna like ask like one of the gear makers if you can put my suspenders like sewed in so when once I like take off them they don't like fall off. And like basically just like in general just like always trying to elevate. I always want to try like every time I step in the rink, I always want to be 100 times better than I was before. And just like all over and just like the character work. That's why I watch like Spike Dudley, for example. He's
Mhm.
like I take some stuff from him. I take some from like movies like Super Bad, like McLovin. I had like a merch where basically he has like license plate, just put my name and my face on it, and just like make
Yeah,
it custom
I
made and
saw
stuff.
that.
So it's like it's kind of cool and stuff, and I try every day try to like elevate new things every time.
Well, I'd love to throw it to Nick now because such a legendary persona that was Eugene, and definitely like more of the comic relief to it as well. Can you talk about that and any advice on building like a comic relief type character?
Comedy's tough, you know. Not everybody has comedy. Not everybody has the timing or or just the wit to be a comedy character. But in any type character, comedy or otherwise, you have to find something that the people relate to and the people connect to. I mean, even like Boris, I mean, everybody knows somebody that's a nerd, or everybody's felt like a nerd at some point. So they can connect on some level with, you know, this kid's getting picked on. I remember when I was picked on, or I saw this kid getting picked on one time, and I know how that kid feels. And that's what we try to do is make that connection. Because once you have that emotional connection with people, they get emotionally invested in you. Then they say, you know what? I want to see this nerd beat up somebody. I don't think this nerd can beat up anybody. He's skinny. He doesn't work out. He's really short and he's pale. But I think he can beat up somebody. And I want to see him beat up this bad guy right here, right now. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. That is really good advice. And can you talk about so for Eugene, like what were some of the first things you did going into building the Eugene persona?
Well, at the time, I had a meeting with Vince McMahon February of 2004. At the time, it was post Austin, post NWO, but everybody still wanted to be a cool, strong heel that got all their moves in, right? And
Yeah,
I knew that I wanted to be complete opposite. I wanted to be a sympathetic underdog comedy babyface because they didn't have one, and the only kids type character they had was Hurricane and Rosie, but the brands were split, so one brand didn't have a kids comedy character. And I just drew upon the comedy matches I saw growing up, whether it's the minis having the comedy matches, or you know, Junkyard Dog, a little bit of comedy, or Handsome Jimmy Valiant, or just
Mhm.
drawing from people that I saw growing up and just kind of melded it into my own.
Yeah, and very successfully too. Once Eugene was over and you had succeeded, what did you continue to do to like evolve the persona?
Well, I would have liked to have seen some kind of between William Regal and Eugene, some kind of not finality, but maybe some kind of turn, or to where they ended up fighting each other. I don't know. Regal probably would have been the better choice as a heel, but at that time, his character was becoming something new because they'd never seen Regal care for somebody else. Now all of a sudden he's, you know,
Yeah,
protecting somebody, and they'd never seen him, you know, with that kind of heart. It
right.
reminded me of the Grinch at the end of the Grinch when the Grinch heart grows, right? He loves the people, and Regal was turning that way. So I don't know if me as a performer, I don't know if people would have bought Eugene as a heel, because when I tried to turn heel later, it didn't really click. I don't know if that's my lacking as a performer, or maybe the people just didn't want it. But I would have liked to have seen something with Regal and Eugene, but who knows where it could have gone. Could have gone all the way to the world title.
It could have gone. No, seriously. And that goes into my next question. We've seen the comedy type person go in like many different directions in wrestling, whether it be like to, world title scene or the opposite direction. What do you think it is that made Eugene so successful for so long and that people still talk about Eugene?
It was a time when I did something different. And it was a time when they didn't have that type character, and all the characters were very similar. And I came out with something outside the box, very different. And the number one thing is that the head writer Brian Gerwick could write for it.
Mm,
And if I tell the guys now, if you don't have a writer that can write for your character, it's very difficult to succeed, because you got to have that writer that can say, "Oh, I can write for this," and put you in the situations and intertwine you with your opponents to create the matches and the atmosphere. You really got to have somebody to write for you, but then you got to know what the character is, and it has to be easily perceivable by the people. People say, "Oh, Eugene's special. He's kind of funny. We're not sure what he is, but we like him." You see someone come out. I use the example of like a fireman. Fireman's got the hat and the hose and the thing and the dog, but you have to know what a fireman would do in a match. If you don't know what a fireman would do, then there's a disconnect between the character we see and then the bell ringing.
right. Like you were talking about, some like related in some way. Yeah, that's very good. Great advice. I'm curious, just to go back to OVW for a bit. I heard Randy Orton recently tell a story about the first time that everyone saw Brock Lesnar come in. He was running the ropes and he fell right out, took out a bunch of chairs, got up and giggled a little bit. Do you remember that story, or do you remember the first time you saw Brock Lesnar come into OVW?
I don't necessarily remember that story, but Brock he was fast, he was quick, and he's probably one of probably the biggest, fastest guys I'd ever been in the ring with. I mean, he was so quick, just from amateur wrestling and just being a great athlete. They would fool around the ring, and the amateur wrestlers and wrestle one another. I never got in there. I never wanted to get stretched, but Brock would be from one corner of the ring to the other and be on the guy so quick, like quicker than anybody I'd ever seen, and just balance. And he's a really nice guy, or a really genuine guy.
Yeah. Being able to see all that speed and stuff before everyone else did too. That's pretty cool that you got those early on experiences with Brock.
Yeah.
Another person you got to be in the ring with, and this is a gimmick that I loved that I heard about, was the Leviathan, Batista, and you got to see him more as the Leviathan. Can you talk about that, how he was there early on as a Leviathan?
Well, you're talking about things that Cornette did on TV, and the Leviathan whole character and establishment and creation was probably one of the best things that he did. They went down to the Ohio River one night, and the manager Sin was some kind of, I don't know, demonic goddess or something, and she conjured him out of the water, and here comes Batista out the water, Leviathan, with his little eye things in. I mean,
Yeah.
look phenomenal. It was great, and just the mystique and the mystery that he had. Every time he hit the ring, people knew, people were going to get clobbered, and they just built him up to be this huge giant character, and he was. And that could have been a character that could have flowed over to WWE and been used very well, much like a Undertaker or a Kane. But they chose something different for him, and I think it was just as well for his career, because he did pretty good, right?
He did pretty good. Yeah, as the animal for sure. Oh man, the Leviathan, though, even like Leviathan, like merch for that would have been so cool, like that kind of like creepy, character. Yeah, definitely. To throw it to you, Boris, I know you recently suffered an injury, right? Was it a college
Yes.
injury?
Right now I'm still injured. I broke my collarbone 3 months ago during a match in Barrie, which was still a good match altogether. I'm really appreciate it. But like I took a finish a little awkwardly, and I didn't like jump properly. It was kind of like a little bit my fault. Is where I jumped, like when I jump, I didn't jump too much, and I kind of landed on my shoulder. And just after that, I just felt like all the muscle I had was like tensed up. And I was like, oh, this does not feel good. And I was on the floor for like 15 minutes. I felt like something was inflamed and something. I didn't realize until 2 days later I broke my collarbone. I was like, oh, that's really nice. And yeah, I've
Oh,
just been out since.
that was 2 days later. You realized, and that you said that was mid-match that happened?
Uh, the finish of the
Finish.
match. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm glad it happened in the finish, but then before, like in the mid in the match.
Yeah. Nick, I know that you also suffered an injury during a match. It was New Year's resolution, I think 2005. Can you take us through what happened there?
So Christian jumps off. It was Christian and Tom. So Christian and Tyson Tomko. Good Lord, easy for me to say. Against Eugene and William Regal. Pay-per-view, New Year's Revolution in Puerto Rico, San Juan, Puerto Rico. I had the Hulk Hogan, Eugene Mania type shirt on, and I was going to rip it off, right? Making the big comeback. Christian comes off the top rope with a double axe handle, and I was going to punch him in the stomach. And as I was pivoting, when he hit the mat, it's boards under there, right?
Yep.
And the boards go down, and when the board came up, I think it like hit the bottom of my foot, and I felt just like a little pinch in my knee. Tomko comes up, and I was going to drop kick him, and when I jumped, my whole patella tendon just ripped in half. And I've torn my ACL. I've messed up my meniscus, but the patella tear was the worst because, like Triple H tore his quad tendon, you can still stand with a torn quad tendon. With the patella tendon, your leg just folds. You can't stand at all. So I tried to put my pants on later on the night, just fall over. And so I had to go to the doctor the next day and get the MRI, and I think I had surgery the following day.
Okay. And do you have any advice on whether it be like rehabbing like Boris is doing now, or when you suffer an injury during a match?
Yeah, I mean, if you get injured in the match, tell the guys around you, and everybody needs to. The referee can just stop the match right there if he wants to, if it's bad enough. And if you feel like it's bad enough, just tell him to stop the match. It's especially on the independents. It's not worth getting injured further, or someone else not knowing you're injured and expecting you to be able to do something that you can't do, and then them getting injured, which is even worse. You can just stop the match. But yeah, just tend to your injuries and just do your therapy fully so it fully heals. Everybody wants to get back in the ring so quickly. That's what I did as well. I was supposed to be out 9 months. I was out 6 months. And when I came back, they put me in an angle with Kurt Angle, and I was nowhere near ready to be in an angle with somebody that, physical caliber. But learn from me. Get all your therapy in, heal all the way.
And you're still Boris, so you're still active in more of an entertaining way with the injury. Like you're still sticking around, Barrie.
Yeah, I'm still sticking back. I hopefully this week or next week I should be cleared to wrestle again. Hopefully I'm with my doctors, make sure I'm clear because I don't want to mess anything up, rush back, then be be injured for another 3 months. Because I love wrestling. I always want. That's why I'm still going to shows. Help out whenever I can. Just make sure I'm still there and stuff.
No, that's great. Nick, you mentioned a specific moment for you with Kurt Angle. Was that when you won his gold medal? That angle?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you take us back to that night? Because I love that. Were you the only one to win his gold medal or the first one?
I believe Eugene was the only one. Yeah.
Wow.
They built it up the weeks prior to where Kurt was doing the 3-minute angle challenge, whoever can last 3 minutes. And we were in Cleveland, and it was supposed to be a hometown boy, but Christy Hemme said Eugene was from Wink Wink from Cleveland, and came out and it lasted the 3 minutes. I mean, Angle was on offense pretty much the whole time, and it was just luckily I threw him out of the ring at the very end and lasted the 3 minutes. That was definitely a high point because Vince had told Kurt Angle that they wanted him to work with John Cena, but they wanted him to get ready on a babyface first, and said, Kurt, who do you want to wrestle? And Kurt thought, well, you can get the most sympathy on Eugene. So he was going to pick on Eugene, and it definitely worked because he beat the bejesus out of me. That's when he put the mouthpiece in and became more aggressive and went on to have a good angle against John Cena.
Wow, that's huge. And do you still have that gold medal?
No, I gave it back to him. I don't think it was the real one, but it was definitely a big hunk of. It was heavy. It was a big hunk of metal.
Wow, it's a really cool moment. Yeah, he was very aggressive. I just watched that moment last night again, and those cross forearms giving you on the ground. Yeah,
pull my hair, hit me in the face, black my eye.
No, that was a great moment. Well, great moment for Eugene in different ways. But so in doing research for this, I saw one video that's just simply titled Eugene beats the shit out of everybody, and it's when you race the ring and you take down every member of Evolution and just one after the other. Can you take us to that moment, because that must have been crazy being in there with all those guys and you on top of all of them?
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, it was a magical time. It was well written, and the heels had a lot of heat back then. Everything was built around them, and Eugene was the one coming in that they were begging for, and it was written and WWE gave it to the people right exactly the way they wanted it. You know what I mean? They built it and built it and built it. And right when they were, wanted Eugene come down and all the evolutions feeding Eugene, bang, 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 Flair's down, Batista's down, and everybody was going after Triple H because he was the main heel, and it was well written. It was great stuff.
Yeah, it really was. So that was so entertaining, really good. And I mean, you must have picked up some stuff working with someone like Flair or Triple H, or what were some things that stuck with you still to this day that that helped you back then?
Well, I mean, the thing is by then, when I started on TV, I had 8 years of experience, and I'd wrestled in main event matches. When I used to wrestle against Rip Rogers, he was very similar to the way Triple H or Ric Flair would call a match. He would call it all in the ring and puppeteer that crowd into where they were in a frenzy and then give it back to him. So I was used to the way that they worked. And I remember I wrestled Ric Flair at a live event, I think in South Carolina, and he paid me a compliment that I still hold pretty dear. It's like, he goes, I didn't know that you knew how to work. He goes,
Wow.
anybody else, I punch them and they get straight up. He goes, I punch you, you stay down until I come and get you. Because that's what you do, you sell the you sell the moves like they hurt. You don't take one and get right back up. And it was just something really cool because Flair was like, okay, I get it. You're one of the guys that knows what's going on in the business.
Yeah, that's a great compliment. Wow, that's huge. How early? When did you say that was exactly, that house show match? Was that like within the Evolution?
It was when I was in the run with Evolution. I don't remember exactly
Okay.
at what point. Probably late 04.
Yeah. I'm glad that sticks with you too. So you were in such a close feud with Triple H with the Evolution stuff. Do you still keep up with the current product?
I see it like the headlines on social media, but I don't necessarily watch it on TV as much.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on this kind of new era that they're talking about since Triple H has taken over, since you worked so closely with him?
I don't see a lot of people complaining online.
Yeah,
and I do see a lot of oh my gosh, did you see what happened? Did you see what happened? So I feel like it's going in the right direction. And I feel like, their product is building and building and building. I mean, if they're moving to the Netflix, if they still got the Fox deal, they still on Fox?
They are for now, but I think that's also moving. I think Raw and SmackDown are both going to move.
But I mean, I think that's going to be a huge move right there, and just every step that I think has been taken since Triple H has kind of been in control. I mean, some people look down upon the Saudi Arabian deal, but that was worth a lot of money. You know what I mean? And they're doing very well business wise. I think they're probably making more money than they ever have.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Netflix is just going to open up so many doors to WWE, to like just so many households are instantly going to get them the day that they go on there. It's really cool landscape of wrestling. Boris, for you as a rising star in the wrestling business, what do you think of the landscape right now of wrestling?
I think it'll be really cool for Raw to be on Netflix and so I think they'll get more fans. I think it'll get a little bit more popularity, like the Netflix wise. I think it would be like a good investment on Netflix, and I think overall it'll be like a really cool move to move like Netflix to like Raw and stuff. I think it would be really cool.
No, I definitely agree. And how about just wrestling, like the scene in general right now? You've got AEW, you've got so many different promotions around. Is it inspiring for you right now at the point in your career?
Yeah, it's very inspiring to like improve, to like be better, and just like you never know what can happen in the wrestling business. But I'm just gonna work hard and just like do my wrestling and just like be myself and stuff.
Eugene, if I could ask you, earlier on in your career, what was the main thing that you were doing back then to kind of get your name out there and try to like make some moves early on when you didn't have as much experience under your belt?
It was a little bit different then because we didn't have the internet. And if you wanted to go somewhere, generally you would send the VHS tape to an address that you hoped was right in hopes that someone would watch it and in hopes that someone would call you. But I kind of relied on guys that were around OVW that might have wrestled elsewhere. Like there was a small town in Kentucky called Central City, Kentucky. And when I first started, the USWA was still wrestling. So the first focus was to try to get to the USWA. And I did wrestle for USWA, the Memphis-based promotion, for the last like 8 weeks that they were in existence, and just some various, I mean, what we would call independents back then, but they're not really the way it is now. It's much easier to find an independent company and to message them on any social media or their email to just say, hey, take a look at me. But it was a little bit different back then. But you just try to get as many bookings as you can. You relied a lot to other guys that had wrestled there and word of mouth.
Story I heard you tell on your channel, speaking of people loving Eugene, it involved a time when, what was it, the t-shirt gun, and someone had, Vince McMahon offered you a bet to do something with the gun. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, I was in the ring in the afternoon before the doors opened on Raw, and the segment was going to be they came up on the air, and Eugene had wandered down and got the T-shirt cannon, was shooting it out, and I was in the ring before the show. We're walking through it, and one of the interns comes up and whispers in my ear, "Vince said he'd pay you $1,000 if you can shoot JR's cowboy off his head." And I looked at Vince, who was on the floor, and just looked up at me and just nodded. And I kind of looked over to where JR and King would be at the table. And on air, I shot it over there, but I missed him by a mile. But if you see it on TV, you can see it go right past Lawler. So I was in the area. Looking
Yeah.
back on it, I should have went to JR ahead of time and say, "Listen, Vince has offered me $1,000 to knock the cowboy out of your head. When I shoot it over there, just knock it off, and then I'll split the money with you." That's what I should have done. But hindsight's 2020, right?
That would have been a great idea, honestly. Yeah. But you were close for sure. I was imagining it was just going to hit Lawler right in the face when I saw it. But yeah, it was really cool. A question I always like to ask is if you pitched anything. I know you mentioned the William Regal, what you would have liked to see with that, but was there anything pitched to further Eugene that we never got to see on main roster?
So, now I kind of had an idea where Eugene would fall in love with one of the divas, and he wanted William Regal to teach him how to be a gentleman. And so there would be this whole progression of, like you see in the movies where Eugene comes out wearing one outfit. "No, I don't like that one." It comes out maybe, and then the third one, "Yeah, that's it." Just those typical buildups. I didn't really have where to go from there. I thought of one where Regal's trying to show him how to kiss somebody's hand, and then I kissed the hand, and we pan back, and it's Tajiri making like some weird face. But Kurt Angle had really good ideas. When I worked with Kurt, Vince wanted Kurt to be like just a machine and get aggressive. So Kurt had the ideas of doing some comedy, which didn't end up getting done. But after I won the gold medal, he had an idea the next week on Raw. He was going to have something done to his teeth where he busts his teeth so he can start wearing the mouthpiece, and maybe his teeth get stitched together, whatever it's called, where you fix somebody's jaw.
Like wire,
and goes you go to the airport, and there's a sign, Olympic gold medalist, with the limo. Eugene comes out with the Olympic gold medal. All right, there's the gold medalist. Take him to Raw. And then Kurt Angle comes out with his mouth wired shut. He's pulling his thing. He's complaining. He's throwing a fit. And there's the short bus with Eugene. This must be Eugene right here. Let's put him in the short bus and take him to Raw. Kurt had a lot of funny ideas, but they didn't end up getting used. But they were very good.
Oh, that's so cool that Kurt was like aiding in that character too, though. Wow. Such a creative mind. Yeah, I mean, you saw everything he did, like the rap battles and everything. Like, really one of the right. It was yeah. He was funny.
No, absolutely. Oh, a funny guy, great performer.
Yeah, such a cool combination. One match I remember, Nick, really vividly watching is the contract on a pole match, which happened much later in your career. I think it was like a return or just a one-off. But I remember watching it on Raw and really rooting for Eugene too. Like I was younger and I was like, come on, like I wanted you back there. It didn't happen. Can you take us through how that match happened and why you weren't brought back really after that?
Well, I got re-signed in 2009. They saw me, right? And then when they brought me on the Raw, I don't know. I assume it was one of those things where Vince sees you the day of, like, he's out of shape. We don't want him. And I was just plucked into that contract on a pole match to feed the Miz's angle to stay on Raw, and just kind of use that as a one-off, like you said. It could have been anybody. I was inconsequential in that. It was just a couple-minute match just so he could win.
Well, Boris, to throw it to you, it's been really cool hearing your journey so far.
Yeah.
What are some goals that are on your horizon, long term or short term?
I would say short term. I would say I just want just to wrestle for all promotions. I would like to wrestle in the States sometime, maybe either this year or next year. I just like trying to like get out there more, to like be more consistent in my bookings and stuff, and just the overall trying to be a better wrestler I was like every day and stuff. I would like to like get some extra work maybe in a few years time and stuff. That'd be cool. And just an overall just probably just like have a consistent booking and like maybe do some stage bookings in like this year or next year for sure. That's probably my goals for right now.
Where have you wrestled so far? What are the places that you're checking off?
So I would say Barrie is one of them. Destiny World Wrestling, it's in Mississauga and kind of Oshawa. I've wrestled for Pro Wrestling Ontario. It's also on IWTV. I wrestled for Crossbody Pro Wrestling. I wrestled for some other promotion like some like GCW, like the Great Canadian Wrestling. What else did I? I think it's like more like I did my student shows. It's just like some promotion in Oshawa and just etc. Something like that. That's the I can name at the top of my head right now.
Well, no, it's really cool you're getting around there, and good luck with
Yeah.
everything. We'll definitely keep our eyes open. Good luck with your goals. Eugene, other than the YouTube channel, Eugene behind the scenes again, for anyone who isn't subscribed yet, it's awesome. What are some goals for you?
My goal is to come to Barrie and wrestle Boris in a tuxedo match. You know,
Oh,
you don't
I'm
have to know
so
how to wrestle.
down.
You don't
I'm
have to
so
know how to wrestle to be in a tuxedo match. You just have to tear the tuxedo off your opponent. And I'll come to Barrie, your hometown, Boris, and I'm going to rip that tuxedo off you and show everybody you got legs like a chicken.
Hey man, I'm ready.
Do you have any, Nick, you've given great advice. Do you have any lasting advice for Boris or really anyone on their journey right now rising?
If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. No, just learn your basics and have a good fundamental of basics and try not to get hurt. Don't do anything that you're uncomfortable with. Don't do anything that's stupid, and just keep yourself safe and have some good looking attire.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Rewind, recap, relive. For over 50 episodes, the revolutionary force in wrestling interview.